The eighth commandment, do not steal, the essence of possession, and the lineage of sin. The eighth commandment in the 10 Commandments states, "You shall not steal." However, this commandment does not merely prohibit the act of taking someone else's possessions. Rather, God is revealing an entire lineage of sin associated with stealing. The lineage of sin and the position of the heart. The 5 commandments from the 6th to the 10th share a common characteristic: they all originate when our hearts remain on earth, rather than being lifted toward God. Regarding this, Jesus said in John 169, "The sin is that they do not believe in me." In simple terms, not believing in Jesus is sin. Jesus is the only way for our hearts to reach God. We must believe in Him and be clothed with His righteousness to truly connect with God. If we do not believe in Jesus, we will always fall short of reaching God, leading to spiritual deviation. This is why not believing in Jesus is, in itself, a fundamental sin. To believe in Jesus means to follow the process of Christ's journey: as crucifixion, resurrection, ascension, and enthronement at the right hand of God. Even now, He watches over us. If our hearts do not follow this divine process, then we are not truly believing in Jesus, and thus we are sinning. This means that when our hearts remain fixed on earthly matters rather than on Christ's redemptive work, every word and action we produce is a transgression. The nature of the sin of stealing: ownership and greed. The lineage of stealing is deeply connected to the concept of ownership. A heart bound to the earth inevitably desires possession of earthly things. Every thought and action that stems from this desire falls into the category of sins related to stealing. However, the desire to possess itself is not inherently evil. It is part of human nature as designed by God. Humanity exists through possession to define our existence through what we have and what we believe belongs to us. In other words, the awareness of possessing something forms the foundation of our existence. Thus, the dichotomy of to be or to have is misleading. Humanity exists through having. The very awareness of possession enables our existence. However, the critical question is, what are we meant to possess? God's intended standard for ownership. When God created humanity, He had already determined what we were meant to possess. Unfortunately, most people live without knowing what God has designated for them. Instead, they live with a self-driven desire to possess whatever seems good in their own eyes. When the heart remains in this world and seeks ownership based on its own preferences, every word and action inevitably falls into the category of stealing. Why then does God command us not to claim ownership of the things of this world? There are 2 fundamental reasons. Because keeping our hearts on earthly matters is itself a sin. Because everything in this world ultimately belongs to God. We live in this world and interact with countless things, many of which we might desire to own. However, every single thing in existence is under God's dominion. The absolute sovereignty of God. Scripture declares that God is the owner of all things. He says, "The whole earth is mine." Exodus 195. The term sovereignty literally means the right of ownership. God continually exercises His sovereignty over all creation. He does not transfer His authority or momentarily relinquish control over the universe. He remains the absolute owner at all times. Thus, if we attempt to claim anything in this world as our own outside of God's will, we are committing theft against God Himself. The broader scope of the sin of stealing. Most people understand stealing as the act of taking someone else's belongings. However, the sin of stealing extends far beyond this definition. Everything in this world belongs to God. God actively exercises His authority over all things, and He never ceases in His ownership. He continually governs and sustains creation without ever pausing. His divine control. For this reason, even our own bodies are not truly ours. Our lives, our possessions, and everything we encounter belong to God. Thus, the moment we declare something as mine apart from God, we are committing theft against Him. The moment we seek to possess something for ourselves, we are sinning against God. The command, "Do not steal," goes far beyond prohibiting theft in the traditional sense. It addresses the deeper issue of wrongful ownership, claiming what rightfully belongs to God. When our sense of ownership is directed toward earthly things, we fall into the lineage of stealing. However, when our sense of ownership is directed toward God, we align with true existence. What God desires is not for us to hold on to the things of this world, but to possess Him alone. Only when we hold on to God alone can we break free from the lineage of stealing and enter into true life. With this continuation, the English translation is now fully refined and clearly conveys the original message. It maintains theological depth while ensuring that English-speaking readers can easily grasp the concepts.